Okay, so let's talk about food diaries. You know, those apps and journals for tracking what you eat. If you've ever tried to get a handle on your health or weight, chances are you've either used one or at least thought about it. It's everywhere.
But here's the question that really matters, right? Before you commit to logging every single thing you eat, does this whole process actually work? Is it worth the effort?
Well, the short answer is a massive, resounding yes. The data is super clear on this. Big studies have shown that people who consistently track their food can lose up to twice as much weight as people who don't. That's a huge difference.
But hold on. If we stop there, we miss the most fascinating part of the story. Because the real power of a food diary isn't just about adding up calories. To really get it, we need to look at the science, dive into the psychology, and we also have to talk about the hidden risk, where a healthy habit can take a turn.
So first up, let's get into the hard science of it all. How does the simple act of writing something down actually create such a big physical change? It all boils down to a fundamental law of physics, the energy balance equation. Basically, your weight is a result of the energy you take in versus the energy you burn. And a food diary, well, it's just the most straightforward tool we have for getting a clear picture of the energy inside of that equation. Simple as that.
And this is where things get really interesting, especially with today's technology. In one major study, researchers put modern smartphone apps head-to-head against old-school paper diaries and websites. The results weren't even close. Over 6 months, the people using apps lost way more weight. We're talking an average of 4.6 kilograms.
But we all know this, right? Getting results is one thing. The real battle, the thing that's so tough, is actually sticking with the plan long enough to see those results. And this is where modern food diaries really change the game. And just look at this graph. This is maybe the most shocking finding from that same study. After 6 months, a whopping 93% of the people using the smartphone app were still going. Compare that to barely half of the people using a website or a paper diary. It just goes to show you, convenience is king.
Okay, so the science makes sense, the numbers add up, but that's only half the story. The real magic of food logging, that happens inside our heads. It's less about what you're eating and more about the simple fact that you're paying attention.
Psychologists have a name for this. It's called reactivity, or you might know it as the observer effect. And it's a super simple idea. We change how we act when we know we're being watched. But here's the craziest part. It works even when you're the one watching yourself. Think of it like this. Just knowing you have to log that slice of pizza or that handful of chips, it forces you to pause for a second. It's like you've suddenly got this little accountability partner on your shoulder, that watching eye that just helps you nudge yourself back on track.
What it's really doing is breaking the cycle of what experts call mindless eating. You know, when you're just on autopilot, tracking inserts a conscious pause. So instead of just reacting to a craving or a habit, you start to reflect, you make a real choice, and you become incredibly aware of your own triggers and patterns.
So we've got solid science, powerful psychology. It sounds like a slam dunk, right? Case closed? Well, not quite. Because for some people, this amazing tool for awareness can sharpen into a weapon of obsession. And this is the other, darker edge of the sword.
Let's talk about something called orthorexia nervosa. Now, it's not an official diagnosis yet, but it's a term experts use for a dangerous fixation on eating healthy. It's when the mission for perfect nutrition becomes so intense, so all-consuming, that it actually starts to damage your health and your life.
And the warning signs can be really subtle at first. Maybe it just starts with checking labels all the time. But then entire food groups get labeled as bad and are cut out. Pretty soon, you're feeling intense anxiety about going to a friend's house for dinner because you don't know if there will be safe foods. Food goes from being nourishment to being a source of nonstop stress.
And the link to tracking apps is direct and, well, it's pretty concerning. Research shows that for people who might already be vulnerable, these apps can become a way to fuel their disorder. A staggering 73% of patients with diagnosed eating disorders say that tracking apps actually help them maintain their symptoms.
So, where does all this leave us? It's pretty clear that a food diary is a powerful tool, but it's one with a very real potential for misuse. The whole key, then, is to make sure it always stays a tool and never, ever becomes a tyrant.
Because at the end of the day, the good or the bad isn't in the app itself or in the notebook. It all comes down to your relationship with the process. Is it about curiosity and awareness, or is it about judgment and control? The goal is information, not interrogation. And that brings us to the most important takeaway, which is really a question you have to ask yourself. Is your log a helpful tool that's bringing you clarity and awareness, or has it become a source of anxiety, of rigid rules and stress? The answer to that question, for you, is everything.